like a god. And so Abraham soon discovered that would have been better off dealing with the circumstances in Canaan than with the people in Egypt. So as a result, when we look at Abraham and him being in Egypt, he moved from trusting God to scheming. Now, see, remember I told you the last Sunday that this story, this is good for me because it helps me to understand that Abraham was just a man. He was just a man that was being used by God. So you can see here from him being down in Egypt, where he went from trusting God to scheming, that he was just a man, because that's what we'll do when we try to figure stuff out on our own. We try to scheme up on something. And so it came to pass, I'm in chapter 12, verse 11. And it came to pass when he was come near to enter into Egypt, that he said unto Sarah his wife, Behold now, I know that thou art a fair woman to look upon. Therefore it shall come to pass, when the Egyptians shall see thee, that they shall say, This is his wife, and they will kill me, but they will save thee alive. Remember I said fear, and so he moved from confidence to fear. So I'm going to make this plan in my head to take care of all that. But I'm now never considering that I'm moving out of my own volition. I'm doing what I want to do, and not what God told me to do. Never thinking that one time. And so say I prayed thee in verse 13, Thou art my sister, that it may be well with me for thy sake, and my soul shall live because of thee. And so he moved from thinking about others, because Abraham had a clan that he was taking care of, those that came with him to Canaan. And so he moved from thinking about them to thinking about himself. And I say selfishness has been around a long, long time, hadn't it? It really has. And sometimes it shows up in the weirdest places. It will show up. And so here we go. It says, now the thing about him being Sarah being his sister, which was kind of like a half truth, because Sarah really was his half sister. So let's look at that. Let's just so we know that. So I'm thinking, he's thinking it's all right if I say that, because she really is. If you go over to chapter 20 in Genesis, chapter 20, verse 12. Chapter 20, verse 12. Chapter 20. Are you there? So this same thing happened again, where he was wanting to say that Sarah was his sister. But this is way over in this particular chapter, but I just want you to see that in Scripture. And yet, indeed, she is my sister. She is the daughter of my father. So they had the same fathers, but different mothers. She is the daughter of my father, but not the daughter of my mother. And she became my wife. Well, at that point, she's your wife. Okay, let's go back over to chapter 12. At that point, she's your wife, and you're not going around talking about she's my sister. You should be going around saying she's my wife, but because of your fear and because you're doing what you want to do and not what God told you to do, now you're lying. You're scheming. You're scared. You've lost confidence because you have placed confidence in your own plans. And so now he moves from bringing a blessing to bringing judgment. Okay, let's look at what that says. And it came to pass, I'm in verse 14, chapter 12, verse 14. And it came to pass that when Abram was coming to Egypt, the Egyptians beheld the woman that she was very fair. The princes also of Pharaoh saw her and commended her before Pharaoh, and the woman was taken into Pharaoh's house. And he entreated Abram well for her sake. And he had sheep and oxen and he-asses and men servants and maidservants and she-asses and camels. And the Lord plagued Pharaoh and his house with great plagues because of Sarah, Abram's wife. So now instead of a blessing, you're bringing judgment. And so Pharaoh called Abram and said, "What is this that thou hast done unto me? Why did thou not tell me that she was thy wife? You got me and my household in trouble, and you about to just really mess up. Why sayest thou she's my sister? So I might have taken her to wife. Now therefore, behold thy wife, take her and go thy way." And Pharaoh commanded his men concerning him, and they sent him away, and his wife, and all that we had, and all that he had. And so, a point is there is no benefit in disobedience. There is no benefit in disobedience, because as we're going to see as we proceed with this study, that everything that Abraham received in Egypt, because Pharaoh's like, here, you take all of this stuff, I'm getting ready to even give you more stuff. You take this stuff, you take your folks, and you get out of here. Everything that he got in Egypt later caused him trouble. The wealth that he received there, and there is where he received Hagar, Sarah's handmaid. And we know that Hagar is going to bring trouble. But, that's an instance of failure in Abraham's life. But how many of you know, Pastor Bland says it all the time, that a chapter is not a book. A chapter is not a book. So just because you fail one time doesn't mean that that's a permanent thing. It doesn't have to be a permanent thing. The victorious believer's life is a series of new beginnings. So, if you think you're going to get up on a mountain and stay there, you're sorely mistaken, because life is like a roller coaster. You're up and then you're down. You're up and then you're down. You're up and then you're down. And so, but you can't stay down. You have to know that where God takes you, if you're up there one time, you can be up there again. And so when we get to this next portion of Scripture, and Abram went up in chapter 13, and Abram went up out of Egypt, he and his wife, and all that he had, and Lot with him into the south. And Abram was very rich in cattle, in silver, and in gold. And he went on his journeys from the south, even to Bethel, unto the place where his tent had been at the beginning, between Bethel and Ai, unto the place of the altar which he had made there at the first. And there Abram called on the name of the Lord. So you notice when he was in Egypt, he wasn't calling on the name of the Lord. Remember what Egypt is symbolic of? The world system. Leaning on the world system, going to the world system and somebody else for help. And so he comes back. He calls on the name of the Lord. Thank God. Now, we never read about Lot calling on the name of the Lord, do we? And remember now, Lot is here, and I would consider as an act of grace and mercy because of Abraham, because Abraham was supposed to leave Lot. He wasn't supposed to bring Lot with him. So the things that you take along, that you drag along, that you forced yourself to cleave to hang on to, when they really should have been cut away, are the things that's going to cause you trouble. The things that's going to cause you trouble. And so in verse 5, chapter 13, verse 5, and Lot also, which went with Abram, had flocks and herds and tents. Both were wealthy. They were both wealthy. They both had plenty. And the land was not able to bear them, that they might dwell together. For their substance was great, so that they could not dwell together. Now, how many of you is nothing like a family fight? Okay, y'all looking at me like y'all never had a fight within your family. Okay. But to me, and I say it all the time, to me that is just the most ghetto thing that you can do is fight your family. It's fight your family. But unfortunately, it happens all the time. It happens all of the time. And most of the time it's simply because somebody's just not getting their way. Or someone has some misconceptions about something, or somebody's just jealous of something and they're envious of something. They're looking at you and they're different, and it just ends up being just a total mess. So now they both have wealth. They're both extremely wealthy. But the land that they have, you only have so much when you have stock, when you have livestock, and when you have herds, cattle, and all of that stuff like that. There's only so much land where they'll be able to graze and able to be sustained because of the land. So the land was not able to bear them, that they might dwell together, for their substance was great, so that they could not dwell together. Abraham, though, in this part, when we look at this, and there was strife between the herdsmen of Abram's cattle and the herdmen of Lot's cattle. I imagine, they wanted the choice land, or maybe they had gotten there first and the others came to try to graze, or whatever the case, it caused trouble. And so, when you look at this particular portion of scripture, Abraham was determined to be a peacemaker and not a troublemaker. And so he did what was within his power to keep the peace. There's always going to be somebody in the family who would call themselves, or that would be their job, is to be the peacemaker. It's somebody that no matter what's going on, they're going to try to say, now look, y'all, this just doesn't make sense. Or you calm down and you calm down. Let's talk about this. And so Lot, though, when you look at Lot had an issue in his heart. Because Lot had gone down to Egypt. Remember, they went down to Egypt. Lot was there too. So Lot had a chance to see what was down in Egypt. And so Lot's mind and his heart was still down in Egypt. Lot wanted more and more and more. And that's unfortunate, because that's kind of the way society is. The rich want to get richer. The rich want to get it seemed like, Lord have mercy, don't they have enough? But they keep wanting to gather and gather and gather. So he coveted more of what they received down in Egypt. And so when we look at Abraham, while they were in Egypt, Abraham thought first about himself. But when he returned to his altar in Canaan, remember, we got back to Canaan, he started calling back on the Lord. He put God first and others next. So as the elder statesman and as the one over that clan, Abraham had every right to decide the issue and tell Lot what to do. He had every right to do that, but he gave Lot first choice. Okay. And Abram said, well, let me go back to verse 7. Chapter 13, verse 7. And there was a strife between the herdmen of Abram's cattle and the herdmen of Lot's cattle, and the Canaanite and the Perizzite dwelled then in the land. And Abram said unto Lot, Let there be no strife. See, trying to be the peacemaker. Let there be no strife, I pray thee, between me and thee. We're family. Listen, we don't have to do this. You got more than enough, and I have more than enough. Let there be no strife between me and thee, and between my herdmen and thy herdmen, for we be brethren. And the Bible says, how good and pleasant it is when brethren dwell together in unity. Is not the whole land before thee? You know, he's trying to exercise, better judgment, be more sensible. Just look out. We got it's enough for everybody to have enough.
Lady Deborah, is that one of the consequences of being, for want of a better word, for being with somebody that doesn't want the same thing you want?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And what do you do about it? Is there going to be an end to the frustration when, do you part ways?
You have to first realize that they don't want the same thing you want. And first, we always talk about living with the consequences of your actions, or owning up to your part in a situation. So first you go back to, you never would have this problem if you had left him where he was. You know what I'm saying? No, you never would have. But you chose to bring him along with you. So now you got issues. Yeah. And so you got to figure out, no, y'all don't want the same thing. We've been down to Egypt. Everybody got wealth while they were there on top of the wealth that they already had. So now you want more of that. It's very obvious that we don't want the same things.
And another point that's very good is that I have to realize that stuff doesn't fix things.
That's a great point.
Yeah.
Oh, Lord, you're talking to me right now. Help me, Jesus. It does not. No, it may soothe for just a moment, but it's not going to fix a situation. It's not going to fix a situation. It's not going to mend a broken heart. And it's not going to ease a troubled mind. So thank you for that point, Pastor. Anybody else have a comment about that, about Pastor's comment? And so, everything is before us, the whole land. Separate thyself, I pray thee, from me. If thou wilt take the left hand, he's being gracious. He's being very diplomatic, very gracious. Abraham is. If thou wilt take the left hand, then I will go to the right. Or if thou depart to the right hand, then I will go to the left. I just want us to get along. I don't want us to have a fight among us, because we're brethren. And there's no need for this. And we're fighting, and there are people around us, these nations around us, these people around us, they're gonna look at us. How many of you know people watch what you do? And then you're saying one thing, but then you're acting a different way. And so the people around us, what kind of witness is that? If we're supposed to be getting along, if we said that God sent me here to this place, but we can't get along, what kind of example are we for them? And so Lot lifted up his eyes and beheld all the plain of Jordan, that it was well watered. See, he's looking at everything from the outside, looking at, okay then. Everything was well watered everywhere before the Lord destroyed Sodom and Gomorrah.
Lady Deborah, it seemed like that Abraham loved Lot, but Lot didn't love Abraham.
Abraham cared for others. Lot was just selfish. And see, and that's unfortunate, because he did not have the responsibility that Abram had. He was actually part of Abram's responsibility.
But God had told him to leave his kinfolk and
He actually told him to do that. But no, you got to pull them all along with you. And you just have to suffer the consequences of your actions, good or bad. You suffer the consequences of your, and then suffer, I guess, in good or bad is, use it in the wrong sentences, an oxymoron, if you will, but you do, whatever the consequences are, you have to deal with the consequences. And so Lot lifted up his eyes and saw what the world had to offer. And that's it, we do that. And the thing is, the stuff that he saw, the stuff that he had, saw what the world had to offer, and he wanted more of what the world had to offer. But here is the difference. Then Lot chose him all the plain of Jordan. I'm in chapter 13, verse 11. Then Lot chose him all the plain of Jordan, and Lot journeyed east, and they separated themselves the one from the other. Abram dwelled in the land of Canaan, and Lot dwelled in the cities of the plain and pitched his tent toward Sodom. Now, he wasn't really in Sodom at that time, but he pitched his tent toward Sodom. But the closer you get to something, the easier it is to get there. Okay? The easier it is to get there.
you got to be your nerve.
You got to test the waters. You test the waters.
That's what I really used to like about alcohol, because what it was, you wanted to do it anyway, but the alcohol will give you a little nerve, a little boost to go ahead. That's like I'm in the casino, they make sure that they serving you liquor.
Just, he tells them here, you're worse than Sodom. You're worse than Sodom. He says, as I live, I'm in chapter 16, verse 48. As I live, saith the Lord God, Sodom, thy sister, hath not done. She nor her doers, as thou hast done, thou and thy daughters. Behold, this was the iniquity of thy sister Sodom. Pride, fullness of bread, and abundance of idleness was in her, and in her daughters. Neither did she strengthen the hand of the poor and needy. So what just the sexual sins that we, like to talk about, but they were prideful. They were gluttonous. They were lazy. And they didn't help those who needed help. And so go back over to chapter 13. And the Lord said unto Abram, after that Lot was separated from him, and a point is too, just like when Terah died, Abraham was able to move on after Terah died. Terah means delay. After that, he died. Pick up your stuff and you move on, but still taking people with you that shouldn't go with you. But you can see better things are clearer to you when you cut off those things that's not supposed to be there, that's not tied to your destiny.
One point, Lady Deborah, we often say as parents, there is no manual that teaches us how to parent, but it just occurs to me this morning that God is the manual of how to be a father. The courage that he must have to allow us to go through what we have to go through. Because I know of me, Sister Cynthia, as a parent, I cringe at the thought of my child having to go through. I want to reach and get him and to keep him from going through, but God doesn't do that. God allows us, knowing that all things are going to work together for good. He allows. He's just a great parent, and the way he parents us to bring us to again. But I can learn a lot from him.
Absolutely. Now, and I thank God that it's like that. It really is not a manual for parenting, and I'm grateful for that, because if man had a manual, it would be trying to tell me how to parent mine like you parent yours. Yeah. But God is unique, and he parents us in a unique way.
That's a good point, because he deals with each one. And I'm thinking about the prodigal son and the one that was at home. And the one that was at home wanted the same standard that it was. You've always let me deal with my child.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And so after Lot had gone away, Abraham had another meeting with the Lord. The Lord, here, I want to show you something. I want to tell you something. You got your mind on Lot, and y'all trying to have peace with each other, but I want to show you something. I want to affirm what I told you in the beginning, and I want to let you know that when I say something, I mean what I say. And when I promise something to you, I mean what I say. And so it says, lift up now thine eyes and look from the place where thou art northward and southward and eastward and westward. For all the land which thou seest, to thee will I give it, and to thy seed forever. Now you have to understand that Abraham is an older man still. He was old when God called him to move from the Ur of Chaldees, and he's yet old, and yet no seed. But God said, I spoke it. And I spoke it, I mean it. This is going to be your land. I'm giving this to you. And not just to you, but to those who's coming after you. And that seed is going to come out of your loins. It's not going to be something artificially inseminated. It's going to be something that is going to actually come from your loins.
I think that you can be walking with God for a long time. At that particular time, thank you. At that particular time, I don't recall or remember how old Abraham was at this specific time, but you can be with God for a long time and still not know God. And so God told him this, God told him that, but he doesn't see what God sees until God reveals it to Abraham. And so I'm just in my 40s, but I'm learning God throughout my entire life. And so these are good examples of what God allowed Abraham and his people to go through, but it's going to take a long time to figure out that God is God and you're not him.
It's a trust issue, my brother. That's all it is.
And you can't trust someone that you don't know. We're trying to know God, but it's going to take a long time. Yeah,
it takes time, but I tell you what, if you're going to know him at all, you have to trust him.
That's right.
If you're going to know him at all. And see, Abraham, the Bible says in Romans, the 4th chapter, that he believed in hope against hope. What was the against hope? I'm old. My wife is old. We can't do nothing. I mean, and you're talking about this land is going to be mine.
That's right.
So what am I supposed to do? You're supposed to walk by faith.
That's right.
And not by sight.
That's right.
Because if I look at my situation looks absolutely hopeless.
And Lady Deborah, it looked like the biggest problem is I can't participate in it.
Right.
How is this going to happen? Because I can't. I'm too old. I don't have the resources. I don't. And I think that's a fatal flaw for me when I start looking at myself instead of looking at God.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. Thank both of you for that. Anybody else? Yes, brother.
You have to give up and give over, because you don't know what the future holds, and God does.
That's right.
You got to give it to Him. Say, well, Lord, you got to lead me and guide me, because I don't know which way to go.
That's right.
Yeah.
And then you learn as you follow on to know.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I'm not saying that I'm waiting for Him. I'm waiting to learn Him. He already knows me, so what I want to do is just lead me the way He want me to go.
Absolutely. But to speak to Brother Shay's point, the more you go through a situation, a thing, the better you will get to know Him. The better you'll get to know Him. And the stronger your faith will become. Because what you say is, Lord, you brought me through this thing. You brought me through this. I know you can bring me through the next thing. It's just not as tough as I think it is. You know, it's tough to me because I'm human, but to you, it's nothing. And so you look at things through the eyes of Lot. Let's do it like that. Let's contrast it like that. You look at things through the eyes of Lot. Lot had stuff, and he looked up and he looked over the plains and he saw how well watered it was, and he saw that it was more of what he already had. And he said, I want that. But God told Abraham, lift up your eyes, and everything that you see, I'm going to bless you with that. Not just that little land over there, but I'm going to bless you with all of this land. So when we operate or walk in faith, things open up to us that we have no idea. He said, exceedingly abundantly more than you are able to ask or think. And that certainly was more than Abraham could ask or think, because he had no seed at that time. Go ahead, Pastor.
Lady Deborah, do you think, and great points for Brother Brimley and Brother Shay, saying that you know him, progressive revelation. Yeah, that's it.
Absolutely, absolutely. And so he says, for all the land which thou seest, to thee will I give it, and to thy seed, not just for a while, forever. And I will make thy seed as the dust of the earth. And you just think about how fine dust is. You sometimes can't even see it. But, well, if you come to my house, you will. But you can't count it. There's no way to count it. He says, I will make thy seed as the dust of the earth, so that if a man can number the dust of the earth, then shall thy seed also be numbered. But you can't even do that. Arise, walk through the land in the length of it and in the breadth of it, for I will give it unto thee. And that's what you have to do, my brother. Sometimes you take that, you have to take that first step. I don't see it right now, but you know what? I'm stepping out because God said it. I'm stepping out on His word. Yes. Because He said it, which means He's going to do it. So I just got to trust Him. It's a trust issue. It's a trust issue. Then Abram removed his tent and came and dwelt in the plain of Mamre, which is in Hebron, and build there an altar unto the Lord. And so we're going to stop right here, and we'll pick up next Sunday with chapter 14 and the battle of the kings. Thank you for your participation. Give the Lord a hand praise, everybody.